Good morning. In our readings today, we have three things: wisdom, second, I, Paul, an old man, third, father and mother. So what is the common denominator? Being elderly. Today in the U.S. is a celebration of World Day for Grandparents and Elderly. In 2021, Pope Francis established this celebration of World Day for Grandparents and the Elderly. This year, the U.S. bishops have approved the transfer of the celebration of World Day for Grandparents and the Elderly in the U.S. to the first weekend after Labor Day to coincide with National Grandparents' Day in the United States. It is a celebration that teaches our communities to increasingly put the elderly at the center, because it teaches us to recognize their irreplaceable role as keepers of memory, witnesses of faith, and teachers of life. The theme of the fifth celebration this year, selected by Pope Leo, is "Blessed are those who have not lost hope." These words, taken from the book of Sirach, expresses the blessedness of the elderly and highlights the hope placed in the Lord as the path to a Christian, especially as we age. It helps us to realize that hope is a constant source of joy, whatever our age. When we hope, we may have been weaned a little, right? But not diminished over the course of a long life. It proves a source of deep happiness. Since the Old Testament, God will seek out others to carry their own cross and come after me. God repeatedly shows us that it is in the elderly that he will often turn to demonstrate his care. We see this when he called Abraham, Sarah, Zechariah, and Elizabeth, all past their prime, but called to be a disciple of God. St. Augustine asked, "What do we mean by old age?" He tells us that God himself answers the question. "Let your strength fail, so that my strength may abide within you. And you can say with the apostle, 'When I am weak is when I am strong.'" Many will often comment on my age being 24 being called. And I always say, well, if Moses can be called at age 80 to set his people free, I have nothing on Moses. God can call anybody at any time. God teaches us that in his eyes, especially in old age, is a time of blessing and grace, that the elderly are, for him, the first witnesses of hope. As we grow older, let us press forward with confidence in the Lord and not lose hope, for the Lord is my banner. The 2025 theme found in the book of Sirach, especially line 14:2, actually says, "Happy are those whose conscience does not reproach them. Blessed are those who have not lost hope," which means a clear conscience, the result of honoring personal commitments and responsibilities to God. This brings contentment and peace. We see in many of the Old Testament figures, such as Abraham's willing to sacrifice his son, who he loves with all his heart, the son of which God promised that he would raise to Abraham generations of descendants. And what was the vehicle for the promise of the impossible child? His old age. But then, confounding to him, God asked for Isaac in sacrifice. God commanded, and Abraham obeyed. That's what made Abraham holy. Recall Sarah, who gave birth to Isaac in her old age. Sarah was so surprised by God's promise to come through, she actually laughed in the face of the messenger. But the faithful wife of Abraham did endure her responsibility to God and ended up becoming the mother of a line that would eventually create the 12 tribes of Israel. A line that Jesus himself was from. In Jesus' own family, his grandparents, Jacob and Anne, have come to know us through the Gospel of James. Jacob was a prominent and respected man. However, he had no children and viewed this as a punishment from God. He prayed and prayed, and in his answer to his prayers, he and Anne, his wife, were given the daughter Mary, who was conceived without sin. She remained sinless, ever virgin, and is the mother of God. Their prayers were answered greater than they could have ever imagined. Joachim meaning God grants, and Anne meaning grace. How blessed a couple. They represent all the quiet and faithful generations, especially the grandparents, who lived out their faith with integrity, passing on religious values and unknowingly preparing the way for the coming of the Messiah. Amen. And in case you were wondering whether Paul grew old in prison if he forgot his other child's name, nope, didn't happen. For the first child's name was spelled Onesimus, as in Onesimus. And, well, naturally, the other child is named Tusimus.